Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and happy Wednesday, Bayou Blitz family. Happy almost spring forward the clocks.
Mm,
We're only a couple days away from that. Lots of exciting things going on in the NFL. Lots of exciting things going on personally. I hope everybody out there is doing very well, including my co-host for this evening on your Bayou Blitz, Mr. Brendan Boylan. Brendan, good evening to you.
yeah, good evening. Happy Wednesday. Would you say happy almost spring forward? Which means it'll be light, a little bit lighter outside, and when I get home at 5:30, it's not pitch black already, which will be nice. I think everybody can agree for the most part. If we could just do away with the whole daylight savings, I think everybody'd be a little more happy. Um, I do want to give just a very selfish shout out real quick. Because it's my show and I can do what I want. Shout out to my Charlotte Hornets. Like, my God, what has happened over the last 2 months? And before we got in the air, I don't have the game on in here or anything, or not looking at the score. They were up 22 in Boston before we
Wow.
went live. They're riding a 5-game win streak, and their starting five is 19-2 going into today. So potential to go 20-2 with this starting five. What happened? And why have they made me wait a decade, Bob? Why have they made me wait a decade to see good basketball? For you Pels fans, I'm sorry. It's just the season's over. It's not getting any better. But no, I just had to give them a quick shout out because it's been insane. And all pun intended, like, the city's been buzzing here. And it's nice to see because the Panthers the Panthers won the division this year. But there has not been a whole lot of anything to root for lately in Charlotte sports. And just like, I'm sure even for you as someone who doesn't root for really anybody in your area, there is something nice about having like good sports vibes in your town, city, area. It makes life a little bit easier. Sports talk radio isn't just awful when you're driving to work in the morning. Things like that.
Listen, Pittsburgh sports talk radio is awful anyway.
Regardless.
Good, bad, or ugly. But I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, for instance, I loathe the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think they should be done away with as a major league organization. However, on the rare decade when the Pirates do reasonably well, this town, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, does reveal itself as a good baseball town, and it's kind of a fun atmosphere. I am a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. The Penguins are doing much better than expected. So that's kind of fun. This is very much a hockey town, even though sports talk radio would have you think that the Penguins are losing every game.
Right.
And I like the Steelers. I just hate the stereotypical Steelers fan. So it's nice to see the Steelers when they put together a legitimate Super Bowl contender. It's been a handful of years since that's happened, but yeah, you're right. Regardless of where you live or whom you root for, when your hometown team, regardless of the sport, is doing pretty well, it kind of makes it for a whole fun atmosphere. Just about wherever you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Another quick shout out, John Butler, friend of the show. Happy belated birthday.
Happy birthday, JB.
Hopefully you had a good time last night, or if you're going out this weekend with family and friends, hope you have a safe and enjoyable evening. Bob, speaking about safe, speaking about enjoyable, speaking about upcoming weekends, there's a big one coming up. I know that you're really excited for it because you finally get out of the cold of Pittsburgh and you get to the tropical Bahamas. There's not a whole lot of time left if people want to join. I don't even know if there's cabins left. We talked about that the other week. But go ahead and tell the people about check out their biggest fundraiser of the year, the Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise.
Yeah, springtime is very, very slowly starting to peek its pretty little head out. but while winter and spring are duking it out right here at the end, why not treat yourself to some tropical summer weather? We are 3 weeks and 1 day away from the annual Get Checked or Check Out Foundation's Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. This year's cruise is on Thursday, March 26th through Monday, March 30th. Uh, I can't wait for it. I've had my cabin, my plane tickets, everything else booked for months. There are still cabins available. And I'll tell you how to reserve your cabin if you haven't already here in a second. But yeah, Thursday, March 26th, sailing out of Jacksonville, Florida this year, not New Orleans, and bound for an unforgettable weekend in the tropical Bahamas that lasts through Monday, March 30th. You can join Black and Gold legends Tyrone Hughes, Courtney Roby, and Michael Lewis for an amazing, fun-filled getaway, and do so with a purpose. This purpose benefits the Get Checked or Check Out Foundation. Their website is right there at the bottom of the screen, tcynow.org. Get Checked or Check Out was co-founded by a good friend of ours, Shireen, about dozen, I think 13 years ago. And they were put in place to help people and their families into the next step when you get a scary medical diagnosis. You don't know where to turn. Your whole world is just turned upside down. Get Checked or Check Out is there for you to help you help steer you in the right direction for research options, treatment options, therapy options, both physical and emotional, both individual and for the family. Get Checked or Check Out helped out over 2,500 cases this past year, 2025. We are goaling to significantly increase that number this year. But to do so, they need our help. That's right. To be there for us, they need our help to do so. And their biggest fundraiser during the course of the year is the annual Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. This is my second year going. I'm a lifer until they tell me to go away. It only took one experience, day one of one experience to realize I want to be a part of this thing for life. And I mentioned Courtney, Mike, Tyrone all going. Delvin Bro scheduled to go, but Delvin has a pending addition to the family. So if you're watching, Delvin, early congratulations. I'll be reaching out to you soon. It doesn't look like D is going to make it this year, but trust me, if there's any way possible he could be there, he will find a way. Whether or not Delvin's able to come, Tyrone, Mike, Courtney, and their families are all going to be there. And folks, if you're going, you don't just have limited access to these guys like most events run in professional sports. This time to that time for autograph sessions, this time to that time for photo sessions. We're all hanging out together and our families, the entire cruise. We have our own section of the boat. We have our own, meeting rooms, conference rooms, bars. We're eating meals together, especially dinners. We will be playing beach Olympic events with your favorite Saints team captain, as well as a very fun but intense putt-putt golf tournament with a Saints team captain of each one. I mentioned game nights, trivia, Q&A with the players. And we're hanging out together the whole time. A couple of the themes, there's going to be a karaoke contest. I mentioned the putt-putt. There's going to be a PJ and onesie night. A little bit scared of that one, and supposedly going to be a cocktail contest on the beach. I'm not scared of that one because whatever happens in the Bahamas stays in the Bahamas. That's the way I look at it. But listen, folks, all tickets, all cabins help raise these much needed funds. So this is a mission. This is a chance for you to benefit a wonderful, wonderful charity and wonderful, wonderful people. And you not only get to feel good about benefiting such a great charity, you get to treat yourself to a weekend in the Bahamas with a portion of the Who Dat Nation and Saints players that you likely grew up watching, and that I am very fortunate to have become very good friends with over the years, just to get to know all of these people, not only the players and their families, but other fans. It's just a tremendous experience. So please, please, please make sure you go this year. There is still time to get your cabins. If you are interested in doing so, call Summer at Seven Seas Travel. Summer's number is 985-788-6584. You can also contact Shireen, the co-founder of Get Checked or Check Out. Shireen's number is 504-305-7563. If you need any additional information on this trip, how to book your cabin, or how to get a hold of Summer or Shireen, reach out to me via text, Twitter direct message, Facebook direct message, email. I am available on all 4 platforms, and I love to talk about this event. I am doing everything in my power to help it out. I hope you will too, and I can't wait to see the faces I saw last year, but I really want to see new faces this year. So help out this charity, help out yourself in the process. It will be well worth it.
Bob, I think that's the best promo you've done all year.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I was gonna say all week, but then that would that's the best and the worst if it's
understood.
If it's the only one we've done this week. I mentioned to Bob before we got on the show, it is silly season. There are some silly things we want to talk about, but let's talk about some serious things first. We'll save the silly stuff for the bitter end, if you will. Let's start with legitimate prospects or targets for the Saints. This offseason, we are getting to that point. The combine has happened. It's underway, right? You have teams starting to make some moves and some guys that are getting announced as post June 1st cuts. And when you start getting those type of reports, it's about go time. Also, little salty the Saints didn't get the Hall of Fame game, but
yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. I'm just gonna be in Canton. That would have been cool. It's fine. I digress. Let's talk legitimate targets. We spent some time last week talking about the offense. And I do still want to touch on the offense a little bit, but let's talk about the defense, a unit that I think. Do you think it's safe to say that they outplayed their expectations from a year ago? Because I do think they were, one, a lot better than they were the year before, but two, I do think there were stretches there where you went, dang, like maybe there is something here that this team could really build on. So
yeah, I do think that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I do think that they outplayed their expectations. And hey, listen, Brandon Staley came to New Orleans with a very good pedigree as a defensive coach, and he not only lived up to that billing, but there were a lot of concerns, including by you and I, how quickly the returning players would adapt to a new system. How well would some players be a fit for this new system? And what surprised me was that this defense played really, really well right out of the gate, and just for the most part improved during the course of the year. I mean, when you finish as a top 10 unit overall and you're top 5 against the pass, you showed significant improvements against the run. You really can't ask for much better than that. I think the defense scored 3 touchdowns during the course of the year, if I'm not mistaken, at least 2, but I'm thinking 3. So you're putting points on the board, you're stopping the opponent, you're getting the ball back for your offense. There's really not much more that you can ask. This was done with 2 players in Cam Jordan and Demario Davis, who were thought by a lot of people to be well over the hill. They rejuvenated themselves. This was with a unit with several first and unproven second-year players in prominent roles, if not starting roles. we talked about players who would be adapting to new roles. Brian Bresee, Chase Young, Carl Granderson, how would they perform? They all, well, Chase Young, Brian Bresee performed frankly above expectations. Chase Young played the best football of his career. A young secondary with one veteran who was new to the team, another returning veteran in Alontae Taylor, and the rest were rookies or second-year players. I said several times during the course of the year that from top to bottom, this was the best performing unit on the entire team. So, by the end of the season, this was one of the better defenses in the NFL, and with all the young players in place, and even guys like Chase and Bresee, really in their mid-20s, just passing their mid-20s, they are in the prime of their careers. So this is an exciting time for the New Orleans Saints defense.
Yeah, and the most interesting part about the fact that they were a unit that continued to grow, gain momentum, play better as the year got on. They did a lot of that with moving parts, right? With injuries, with guys having to step up and whether it be a game or two or whether it be the remainder of the season that had to step in and play a vital role. And a lot of those guys were younger guys. It wasn't like the Saints were bringing in these veteran guys to come in and fill these roles. It was who's left over there? A Sanker, Sanker's in, or whatever the case might have been. And then also remember, beginning the season and having question marks in the secondary because of injury, the Justin Blackmon injury, Isaac Yiadom just not playing well whatsoever. And Quincy Riley steps in and ends up having a really strong rookie campaign, right? There's so many factors that go into that. We talked about Chase Young. I'm never going to forget that just because I was in Seattle, by myself, and it was right after the Saints played a miserable game out in Seattle, and you and I were talking about, well, how many games is Chase actually going to play? Because he hadn't played to that point in the season, and that was a big debate whether the Saints had just wasted a ton of money in free agency on a guy who hadn't really proven that he could stay healthy. And he goes and has a remarkable, not back half of the season, but really after the first quarter of the season. Once he got healthy, he was playing, as you said, arguably the best ball of his career. But now it brings up some interesting things going into free agency, which is how we are going to kind of segue into like who the Saints should target. Obviously, the two big names, the veteran guys, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, there's question marks there on what's going to happen with both of them. Alontae Taylor is a guy that I think the question still is, like, how much money is he going to command on the open market? And I think that ultimately is going to be the deciding factor, as it is most of the time, money, right? But can you bring him back in a range that you want him to be? The other thing that I don't think gets talked about enough, because we're talking about human beings here, we're not talking about playing with NPCs or AI in Madden. We're talking about actual human beings, is what these human beings want. Because in Madden, it's always about they're going to go wherever they get paid the most money, right? That's just how Madden franchise typically works. When you're dealing with human beings who may have fell in love with the city of New Orleans and want to stay and end their career in New Orleans, you have guys who may be looking for a bigger role to, paint a different picture of their legacy. And those things are just as vital to bring into the picture. I think Cameron Jordan's made it very clear he would like to be in New Orleans and be a lifer. This is the first time that there is some doubt on what Demario Davis is doing, and it does sound like he is going to hit the open market and at least test the waters. And then, as I mentioned, Alontae Taylor, those being kind of your big three free agents, Alontae Taylor is like, well, he's played really well in this. I don't like using the word joker role because I think it's overused.
Yeah.
But maybe he's in a go gadget for Inspector Gadget fans. Maybe it's a go-go gadget role where he can do whatever you really need him to do in the secondary. Does he want to be that the rest of his career? Does he want to go and try to get, cornerback one money and be a number one corner for a team? I think those are all factors that are going to play into this. But I think it also makes it very easy to highlight 3 positions that the Saints may be looking at in free agency.
Yeah, very much so. And yeah, we'll start with Taylor, mainly because of the 3. I think he's the one least likely to come back to New Orleans. Recent reports have Alontae Taylor or his representatives, saying that he expects between 17 and 18 million a year, as one of the top cornerbacks on the market. If that's what he expects, it's not going to be in New Orleans. It's just not. But I suspect that someone will pay it, because finding good cornerbacks is hard. Is Alontae Taylor a top tier cornerback in the NFL? Not in my opinion. And this is coming from someone who really, really likes Alontae Taylor as a player. But personally, I think Alontae is his most effective, most dangerous in that hybrid role that we have seen him used in New Orleans, especially the last 2 years. Now Brandon Staley, Kellen Moore, they do like Alontae Taylor, and you could tell that, especially with Staley by the way he used him. But as you pointed out, Brendan, these are people, and these are people that are playing a profession that's ultimately going to make up a short period of time in their life. In other words, the goal is to make one of the goals is to make as much money as possible, because you want financial security, as you get older, for your family, certainly for yourself. So I will never begrudge a player chasing a dollar. I won't. Having said that, I'm hoping that Alontae Taylor stays, but I've always said that if the Saints allow him to hit the open market, someone is going to pay him a lot more than what the Saints are willing and frankly able to pay. So if Alontae Taylor leaves, that definitely opens up the cornerback position as a position of need. I thought Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley both played extremely well last year. I'm excited about them in year 2 as a tandem. But we all know that, especially in today's NFL, you need multiple cover guys, because you're going to be the majority of the game. You're going to be facing multiple receiver formations, and that's where Alontae Taylor was effective. That's also where I think the re-signing of Julian Blackmon is highly underrated, because Blackmon is the type of player that can step into the slot and cover for you. Maybe not to the level that Alontae Taylor can. So I do. There have been some that have said, "Oh, if the Saints lose Alontae Taylor, they have to draft a cornerback in the first round, or they have to pay a lot of money for a cornerback on the open market." Well, and there's plenty of time to talk about the draft. I do disagree with that assessment, because again, you have Blackmon, which if he stays healthy gives you some versatility. While I acknowledge cornerback is a need if Alontae Taylor is lost, maybe not as big as some think. And as far as paying top dollar for a cornerback on the free agent market, if you were going to do that, then why the hell would you not keep Taylor in the first place? You can't sign him before before free agent signing period. Then you franchise tag him. Well, that opportunity came and went. So New Orleans is obviously willing to take their chances. Be it on maybe Taylor can get signed for a reasonable amount. Maybe he doesn't get offered what he thinks on the open market, and the Saints have an opportunity to pounce. If not, Asante Samuel, as I've written about a couple times now. That's a possibility. Tariq Woolen, the Seahawks one of the Seahawks starting cornerbacks, certainly came out of a fine season. He'll be available. Eric Stokes, Greg Newsome, a couple other mid-20s guys, mid-20s, that will be available too. So options are there for sure, but I don't know that the Saints will need to feel like that they have to spend top money on a cornerback, or even be forced to draft one. I'm not denying the possibility, but they're not going to be forced to draft one if they lose Alontae Taylor.
I think linebacker is the most interesting position for me,
Mm-hmm.
because if DeMario goes, it's a huge hole to fill, because there's not really anybody behind DeMario Davis that you or I feel can step in and be the guy from day one, right? Not a lot of confidence in Pete Warner moving over to that spot. Danny Stutzman, not a lot of confidence moving over and, into that spot either. While there are things that both of those players, I think, do well, neither of them do what Mario Davis does. And not a lot of players do, right? One of the highest IQ football players that you or I have ever covered. A guy who, yes, you're starting to see father time catch up with him, but still want a super athletic linebacker, a guy who can drop into coverage and not be an absolute liability or anything. Can cover tight ends, can keep up with a lot of different backs still at this point in his career. Everything you really want out of the vocal and emotional leader of your defense. That's the one that worries me the most. And
yeah,
I do
me
have
too.
a feeling that, and we've talked about this, right? Especially as the championship window has closed, there's going to be guys that leave that's going to hurt a lot more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reality is starting to set in at least a little bit that there is a true 50-50 chance. And you're going, well, duh, Brendan, that's how it works. He either signs with the Saints or he doesn't. There's a legitimate chance he's not on the roster next year and he's finishing his career somewhere else. That's a tough pill to swallow, but I think that's the closest we've ever been to that reality.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And while it's a possibility you lose Cam Jordan too, I feel pretty strongly that unless Cam just gets wowed by a financial offer from a contender to get a ring, I feel Cam is going to be back in New Orleans. I think I have a lesser feeling about Davis that way. I think it's possible, but I do agree with you that of the two, DeMario Davis feels like the much more likely to leave. We've heard, and folks, Brendan always puts out this disclaimer too, but I'll beat him to it this time. We're going to warn you week in and week out from here on out, probably through the draft. Be very, very, very careful who you pay attention to, because there are a lot of fake accounts, people that claim to have sources and don't, people that want to be more important than what they actually are. Just be very, very careful who you believe your news from. And especially this time of year, my messages get flooded with, "Hey, I heard so and so," or "Hey, I heard this about a Saints player, or about a Saints move." I'm not making fun of anybody here, because I always tell you guys I don't mind the questions. I'm here for you the best I can be, but I usually respond if they don't tell me ahead of time. Where'd you hear that from? And when they tell me, my response usually is, they are bullshit. You need to block them yesterday. So yeah, be very, very careful. But having said that, there have been rumblings that the New York Jets are interested in pursuing DeMario Davis to bring him back for what would be his third stint as a Jet. Well, DeMario, if you're chasing a ring, it ain't going to be there.
Yeah, it's like the last place you want to be.
Literally. But I do feel like that there's going to be other interest throughout the league in DeMario Davis. And I know we'll talk more about Cam in a second. There have been some rumblings from Saints fans, from sources. DeMario and or Cam will end up as a Chicago Bear because Dennis Allen, their former defensive coordinator, is there. Well, yeah, Dennis Allen is there. On paper, if you're chasing a ring, Chicago just won the division. We're a couple plays away from the conference championship game. But you need to look closer, and you need to use some common sense. Cam Jordan was not shy about his displeasure about over Dennis Allen over the last year or two in New Orleans. So there ain't going to be a reunion there. DeMario was not happy with Dennis Allen, particularly the last year. He wasn't as vocal as Cam, but he was not happy. So I don't know if I could see a reunion there either. But again, there's going to be interest in DeMario. I feel like it's going to be one of those situations that the Saints are going to let him feel out his, well, they don't have any choice. He's going to hit the open market. The Saints are prepared to let Davis field whatever offers he gets out there, hoping, and maybe conversations have taken place, hoping that DeMario will come back to them and say, here's my offer from this team or that team. Can you match it or better it? Because I do know, we do know that DeMario and his wife love the New Orleans area. They have been very, very active in several charity causes and other things active through the community. So he's not only a spokesman for the team on the field, he's been a spokesman for the franchise off of it. And I think that that's a key factor heading into free agency there. That doesn't necessarily cement the fact that DeMario Davis is going to retire a Saint, but it does help. And I still lean towards, at the end of the day, DeMario is going to be with the Saints one more year. But I'm like you. I'm not nearly as confident in that as I once was. And again, you lose DeMario. We think Danny Stutzman is going to step into a more prominent role, and he would certainly have to if you lose Davis. But Pete Werner, we know that Werner is a major liability in space and a major liability in the passing game. And while I like Stutzman, he's not the athlete DeMario is. And I like Stutzman's football IQ, but is probably not going to be able to compare to DeMario, especially right out of the gate. So you lose a DeMario Davis. Now suddenly linebacker is a legitimate need. Maybe more so than cornerback if you lose Taylor and Davis.
I agree. Let's talk Cam Jordan a little bit. And this is a good segue into one of the silly topics I wanted to have, which was potential reunions for the Saints. But let's talk about Cam Jordan, that position. The way that Cam has spoke this offseason in some of his media, because he does have a future in media whenever he decides to hang it up. He has quite the personality for it, right? It helps. And the knowledge and the IQ and being a guy who will be in the Hall of Fame at some point. I think the biggest thing with Cam in some of those interviews and the way he's spoken about the Saints is he continues to refer to them as we, very much like Drew Brees did and still does, which tells me that Cam has no desire to go elsewhere at this point. And he envisions himself with the Saints moving forward, which is something he's always said. So that's kind of where I stand with Cam Jordan. But should the Saints need to look at defensive end, which maybe they do, maybe they don't, Trey Hendrickson announced today he's not returning to Cincinnati via Instagram. There were reports that Rashid Shaheed will not be returning to Seattle, or at least hitting the open market first. So, Bob, those are two in this little silly season of potential Saints returns. Are there any other names you'd like to throw out there before we kind of talk about kind of, I guess kind of sports talk radio of like, let's rank these and like most likely to least likely? Are there any other names you'd like to throw out there as like potential Saints returns? Because Marshawn Lattimore is also a free agent.
Yeah. And we just talked about a need at cornerback. I can't see a reunion with Marshawn Lattimore. And by the way, how significantly have the Saints won that trade? You get rid of Lattimore, and you get back 3 draft picks that turned out to be Quincy Riley, Jonas Sanker, and Devin Neal. Those are 2 starting members of your secondary, and at least we believe going forward, a contributing member of your offensive backfield. That's a pretty damn good return.
Yeah, and I feel, speaking of that, I'm not to refresh my memory or maybe get some help from the Google of the world. I feel like the Saints have been pretty good about that in recent memory in letting people go at the right time, which is a difficult game to play, right? Especially when we talk about guys that mean a lot to the franchise, both inside and out. And what I mean by that is inside the building, on the field, but also outside to the fan base. It's a hard thing to navigate going, you know what? I think it's time to let this guy go, or let's get what we can for him, that type of thing. But I think the Saints have been good at that when they've had to do it.
Yeah, they have. I mean, everybody wants to pounce on the Trey Hendricksons and the what the hell is the linebacker that was never a fit here?
Zach Bond.
Zach Bond. Well, I mean, Bond didn't do a lot last year, and while Hendrickson was great in Cincinnati, the Saints had no choice. They had just paid Cam Jordan, and Cam was still playing really, really well at the time. And they elected, the Saints made the wrong decision there. They elected to pick up the fifth year rookie option on Marcus Davenport and not getting apply the franchise tag to Trey Hendrickson. Well, I mean, nobody's going to be perfect. You look at Von Bell. Von played reasonably well after he left, but not great. Eli Apple was garbage when he left. Janoris Jenkins did not play well after he left.
Yep.
We could go. Yeah, the Saints got Ted Ginn Jr. pretty much at the end of his career anyway. Offensive lineman that they let go. I mean, Teron Armstead was still good when he went over to Miami, but not as good as he was in New Orleans. So yeah, I mean, you can't. Everybody wants to pile on Mickey Loomis and the Saints organizations for the Trey Hendricksons and the Zach Bonds, but those are 2 exceptions, I think. I hated to see Lattimore go. Best cornerback and best defensive back in Saints history, and one of the best defensive players in franchise history. But it was time. Lattimore was already declining when the Saints dealt him, and he hasn't been and is not the same player. Now, as far as Trey Hendrickson, if this team still ran a predominant 4-3 scheme, I would say let's throw a bag at Hendrickson, bring him back. I don't know. Trey Hendrickson is a good football player, so good football players are going to be good wherever they go. But I don't know that Hendrickson would be as effective in Brandon Staley's scheme than he was in Cincinnati's 4-man front, and certainly as he was his last year with New Orleans and Dennis Allen's scheme. But I mean, if you're talking reunion, Alex Anzalone going to be a free agent. He's, you know what? He has played really well since he left New Orleans. But it's not that he played badly in New Orleans. It's just that he couldn't stay healthy.
Nope.
And he actually did, for the most part, with Detroit. Caden Ellis, since he left the Saints, he'll be a free agent. Since he left the Saints, he's been about what he was his final couple years with New Orleans. And another guy, if you're looking for a reunion, Al-Qaeda Muhammad. The forgotten member of that 2017 draft class.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you're feeling nostalgic, these are the former Saints, that and Teddy Bridgewater, that are on the open market.
It's funny because we talked about Teddy Bridgewater being like a guy who made sense to be like the third quarterback, like the emergency guy. I still think he fits that role. I think the Saints still do need to go get a veteran guy like that. All right, let's do this. Let's rank them. You mentioned a lot of names there. Least likely, we can both agree. Marshawn Lattimore is the
Yeah.
least likely of them to come back. John Butler said, "Let's get the band back together." Some of the band, I'd be okay getting back together. Another least likely, as much as I'd like to see it happen, like I don't think Trey Hendrickson. I think somebody else throws him a lot of money, and there's not an immediate need in New Orleans for that. So we can kind of put him down there as well. Most likely, you're going to like this one, but I think the most likely one is probably Rashid Shaheed. And needing someone who can change the game as a return man, because that you really lost that
Yeah.
after he left. But again, I think it's safe to say like Seattle probably doesn't win the Super Bowl without some of those Rashid Shaheed games. I think that's a fair assessment. I don't know what kind of market he's going to have. And it's not because of the talent, it's because of the age. You know, being almost 28 years old, when does the speed start going? I don't know how much that's going to scare teams, but I still think that and maybe Caden Ellis would be some of the more likely guys that could come back.
I think now, as far as what I'm rooting for, a reunion with Rashid Shaheed is at the top of my list. I love watching Shaheed play. And it does fill a need. It gives you more explosiveness at wide receiver. Yes.
Yep.
It doesn't change the fact that I think you still go after a big bodied wideout somewhere in the draft, day 1 or day 2, likely day 2. But the return game was just non-existent after he left. Now, there's other ways that you can find returners, and the Saints typically like to do it with undrafted guys, undrafted athletes. They've pretty much done that. Well, I mean, for decades, reaching all the way back to Mike Lewis, not Tyrone Hughes in the early '90s. Yeah, he was a draft pick. And he was certainly an explosive kickoff, punt returner, and defensive back. But outside of Ty, Mike Lewis, Deontay Harris, obviously Rashid Shaheed. Courtney Roby was a draft pick, but a cast off from another team. The Saints have usually preferred other methods to find their explosive returner. But bringing back Rashid Shaheed would certainly fill that. And I'm like you. I don't think he's going to get a bag on the open market, maybe not as much as what he thinks. So I think the Saints could be in play. But that's only if the first week of free agency or first half week, because, I mean, the bullshit legal tampering period starts on Monday. Thanks, Goodell. The official legal signings tampering can begin.
That doesn't, like, those two words, like, it doesn't make sense.
No, but tampering. It's a Goodell world. I mean, and in the past, you would hear rumors and mumblings Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but then nothing official until Wednesday. Now, because of the legal tampering, what you're hearing, again, be careful of your sources, folks, but what you're hearing through Monday and Tuesday are about 90% true if you're getting them from the right source. And we will be reporting it on Saints Wire as it happens. I very nearly said the other bullshit criminal site. Did you hear my pause?
Look, man, we wrote for them. Okay, just to throw that out there. Not just wrote. We worked for them.
Yeah.
for 7, maybe 7.5 seasons by the time I got brought on. So
Yeah.
it's hard. There's a lot of, and let's be honest, we've been journeymen since. So it's not like we haven't bounced around
Right.
to different sites and different podcast networks.
Speaking of free agency, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, yourself, me, John Hendricks, certainly, Ross Jackson for a bit of time. I mean, wherever we've been, we've been very proud of the work that we've done, even for that idiotic site. And I say idiotic site because when we were there, we were among the best. It was just too bad that we worked for a lying, corrupt, stealing, cowardly, spineless sludge of a human being in Kyle T. Mosley. But us as a core, we did good work. And at Saints Wire, we pride ourselves on the same thing. We aren't going to put out false news. If we write about or speak about something, we're very clear, whether it's a prediction, whether it's a projection, or if it's actual news and we have the source, we name the source. Sometimes we are the source. So like I said, be very careful, especially Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this coming week, or I guess next week, folks. But yeah, I mean, if Shaheed goes through the first 4 or 5 days of free agency unsigned, I think that increases the chance that the Saints could be able to bring him back. That's my personal favorite. Logistically, from a team aspect, you mentioned Caden Ellis. I'll tie that with Caden and Alex Anzalone. I put about even, because if you're going to lose Demario Davis, and I'm not saying this because I'm not going to say, Ellis, Anzalone know the system, because they don't. It's a different defensive coordinator. It's entirely different personnel. But these two guys have really good football IQs, can still play really well. And if you are looking for for Stutzman and even Isaiah Stallbird to play bigger roles, then maybe if you lose Davis, maybe you say, you know what, we don't have to get a top tier linebacker in free agency. We can find somebody who's heady, who will pick up the system fast, kind of help along Stutzman and Stallbird's development, and we'll look to add another linebacker late in day 2, early in day 3. Pitts Kyle Lewis comes to mind. Again, I'm not going to get too deep in draft projections, but Luis Rodriguez from Texas Tech, those could be some potential targets. Because, hey, I mean, we have talked about an heir apparent to Demario Davis for the last 4 or 5 years now. The Saints have drafted linebackers, for the most part, failed. Jury's still out on Stutzman. I've rendered my verdict on Pete Werner. DeMarco Jackson, he's elsewhere. Caden Ellis, he's elsewhere. Jalen Ford, nothing more than a special teamer. Even if you keep Davis, just like with Cam, if you keep him, edge rusher, linebacker are both still needs that have to be addressed this offseason, because you got to get younger there. Because if you have either and or Demario and Cam back, it's likely you can really only expect one more year of high level play. So you need to be prepared for that maybe the eventuality is March of 2026. Maybe it's 2027. You have to take advantage of the opportunities while you get them. And that's why, even if you lose Davis, I think Ellis or Anzalone could be a possibility, because that they could start games for you. That they can give you some high quality play, and you can use those type of guys in situational football, along with Stutzman, Stallbird, Werner, and a potential rookie draft pick.
Let's move to silly season with our last few minutes here. We'll have plenty of time next week to talk about just what's going on in the league as a whole. But this is something that, with the draft coming up, one of our favorite times of year, we'll have our draft-a-thon. We'll do all the fun stuff. Don't you guys worry. But it made me think about what's going on in college right now. With NIL, dudes trying to make money, dudes trying to relive their college dreams, and particularly in college basketball, where you have a handful of players who are trying to regain their eligibility. The big names, James Najee, who played basketball overseas, was drafted, was traded, and never came over to the United States, is now playing at Baylor after winning his appeal. And you go, well, how? He was a professional athlete overseas. He was drafted as a draft and stash and traded. I think that's the biggest thing to me. That, like, playing professional is already a problem, but you've been traded. Like, you were a part of a trade.
Yeah.
And then the other one being Amari Bailey, who is still going through his appeal process. He has played in NBA games and is trying to go back. So with all of that, I wanted to pose this silly season question. Will that ever translate its way to college football? Now, some of you guys are saying, well, how is that going to happen? NFL, da-da-da. I'm talking more of, is there going to be a guy who was playing in the CFL up in Canada or the USFL that goes, you know what? I want my college eligibility back. I'm going to go play football at Texas A&M because I have 2 years left of eligibility, or whatever the case may be. Can you see a situation where that ever happens? And what would your reaction be if you see something pop across your phone or pop across the screen that it's, I'm just going to make up a name here, but let's say, Canadian Football League All-Star Billy Joe, just to give everybody some PTSD with the Billy Joes. Yeah, you're welcome. Billy Joe of the Hamilton Tiger Cats is going to be joining SMU for the remainder of the season because of his eligibility. What would your initial reaction be to that? And how crazy has this gotten where we're legitimately having dudes win these appeals?
My initial reaction would be the same thing has been with the college basketball players that are going back. Absolute fury. You've made the conscious effing decision to leave college. There are some things, or skip college. There are some things. Every decision. I hate the word consequence in with every decision. Sometimes there are consequences, but certainly there's a trickle down effect with every decision that you make in life. Some things you can go back on, some things you can't. To me, this is one of those things that you can't. You've made the conscious decision to leave college or never attend. The rules, the NCAA rules, and trust me, as an NCAA athlete and coach, that rule book is unbelievably thick, and there's a lot of gray areas, and areas where you need an attorney just to interpret what's on the damn page. But when it comes to professional and amateur status, that's always been pretty as close to black and white as the NCAA gets. And now they're blurring those lines. It makes me absolutely furious. You have, and the NFL is one of the better at this, but the NBA I know does it too. There's consultation available for these young men, young women too. When it applies for the sport that it applies to. There's consultation available in these leagues, and as I said, NBA, NFL, they're great at it, where they can consult with representatives of the league that have a feel for agents and teams to gauge interest. If they declare for the draft, am I going to be drafted? And if so, what's the projection for how high? And that's how they base their decision on whether to declare or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. So, in other words, the information is available for these athletes to make an educated decision. And having said that, if you make the decision to try to take that next step, there ain't no going back. I'm sorry, there's not. But do I envision the NFL doing that, at least to some extent? Yeah, I can. If these college basketball players start winning their appeals on a regular basis, and these are just going to be the first two. There's going to be a lot of cases like this from here on out. It could open the floodgates and almost force the NFL to do it. And that sickens me, because you know what it does too, Brendan? It also takes opportunities away from the younger, legitimate collegiate athletes. Look, I don't begrudge and I'm just throwing a name out here, if a Jalen Ford, who's been now 2 years in the NFL, his NFL career isn't what he wants it to be. I'm not begrudging, and I also don't know, folks, whether Jalen Ford finished with his degree at Texas or not. Actually, I think he did. But let's say, for argument's sake, he didn't. I don't begrudge a person going back to college and finishing your education. Matter of fact, I encourage it. But to go back and finish your collegiate career, you had your chance. You chose to step away, and now you're taking an opportunity away from an 18 or a 19-year-old who's getting their dream opportunity of playing for any NCAA football. You're taking those opportunities away. You had your opportunity, and you chose to step away from it. That's the way I feel about that. And really, there's no gray area in my feelings about it.
I'm the same way. I mean, look, this is going to sound silly, but when I decided to go to a Division I university, I knew, even as a non-athlete, my clock started as soon as I stepped on campus.
Yeah.
Right? So just because I never played college sports does not mean I can get on the phone with somebody in my incredible shape right now and say, hey, I want to go play college football. I have 4 years left. Or I want to play college basketball because I have 4 years left. Because I understood when I got there, my clock started.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to walk on or if I wanted to do whatever. I've said for a while, the only exemption that I am okay with when it comes to what's going on in college basketball, I don't know how you could make the same comparison for football, so you guys just bear with me, is there was a program called G League Ignite.
Yeah.
Okay. So when Ignite folded and you had guys who were first or second year Ignite players that gave up their college eligibility to go pursue this opportunity, if they wanted to appeal and say, hey, I want my last 2 years of eligibility, okay, you know what? I wouldn't be mad at that, because it's the same thing as like when UAB's football program folded. You had all those guys who had to transfer, and they were granted, a lot of those guys were granted an extra year or whatever because the program folded. That's
different.
Right. That's kind of my comparison when it came to like the G League Ignite program is, hey, these kids kind of got screwed because they thought they were going to have a pathway to the NBA. And people are like, well, they're professional athletes or whatever.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I also think, at least for a period of time, if they don't still do it, that if an underclassman declares for the NBA draft and they don't get drafted, they are eligible to return to school if they hadn't hired an agent.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And I would be okay in a similar scenario with the NFL. But with the NFL, I mean, you see so many undrafted guys make it and make it big.
Right.
So I mean,
a great example of a franchise that has made it big.
Definitely. So I mean, you could see, and I don't know if I would have as major a problem with it. Staying on the NFL for an example, if an underclassman declares they don't get drafted, they still sign with a team, but they get cut before the end of training camp or at the end of training camp. Now since there's only one cuts, if the NFL is going to do it, this would be the only way that would be mildly acceptable to me. In a circumstance like that, A, have to be undrafted, B, have to have remaining college eligibility, C, you get cut at the end of training camp. Your options then are you can re sign with a practice squad, you can join the UFL or the CFL, or you can petition to go back to school. That's the only
Even if
way
they
that I would be okay with it.
even if they appeared in preseason games?
Yeah.
That's where my gray area is if you've partaken in, right? And that was some of the argument in the James Najee Baylor case, was he had participated in the summer league, which is not a preseason, right? So
Right.
it was kind of one of those like, well, he hasn't participated in NBA games. And I was like, yeah, but like he's still reported for summer league. There's a lot of draft and stash guys that don't report for summer league.
Yeah.
Right. And again, he'd played professional basketball. So like there's all that. So
And listen, I still, even though I threw out that small gray area that I have that I might be mildly okay with, I still stick to, this is one of those decisions that you make in life, that the resources are there for you to make an educated decision. But it has a trickle down effect. Sometimes with some things in life, there's no going back. That should be one of them. I acknowledge this was the early 90s when I was a collegiate athlete. And I drank my way out of school for some reason. When you're an athlete, the universities that they give you a scholarship, they expect you to go to class, and I didn't.
that's crazy, isn't it?
I right.
What?
So I mean, I technically still had collegiate eligibility. I would have to reapply, for any other school, since I literally drank my way out of school. But I still technically had eligibility as a volleyball player. Now, and again, the rules were black and white then. I played, as some may or may not know, I also played Pro-Am beach volleyball. In fact, the bulk of my career from there on was Pro-Am beach. Now, a lot of college players would play in Pro-Am beach tournaments. And the reason why I always say Pro-Am is because there are money tournaments on several different tours, including the Big Pro Tour. The rule was this: you could not, if you were a college athlete, or an athlete in my case with remaining college eligibility, there was an entry fee for every tournament. Whatever prize or prize money you won could not exceed that entrance fee. If it did, if the entrance fee was $50, you paid your $50, you won $51. If I accepted that $51, boom, I was instantly no longer collegiate eligible. I was a professional athlete. That was a gray area, or no, excuse me, that was not a gray area. I knew it, and suffice to say, I won more than $51 in my volleyball career. But I made the decision, you know what, this is going to be the next step. I didn't cry about it. I didn't whine about it. I didn't say, I think Penn State should let me back in or wherever. That was the conscious decision I made. And I wasn't confused about it. I, couldn't plead. I did not know this. Some would. Some through the 90s would lose their collegiate eligibility because they accepted prizes that were valued more. Well, I wasn't aware. You had your chance, though. You had your chance to be aware, and that is my point.
Just to throw it out there, I would have been college athlete eligible in the mid 2010s, I was also aware of the black and white areas as someone who was not a college athlete on what you could and could not do. Now, given I was around the athletics program, obviously, for almost every day of my life for those 4 years. But something as simple as this, I knew, right? Because like you said, Bob, the rules used to be black and white, like very black and white. Something as simple as we used to have media luncheons with players, coaches, and whatever, right? Once a week for football, we would sit down at lunch with the head coach and maybe a player requested by the media. The entire tab for all the media was covered by the football team or the athletics department. There was one separate check, though, and it was always for whom? The player. Because his meal could not be paid for, because if it was a violation of NCAA rules.
Yep.
That used to not be a gray area. It was very black and white. You could not do that. So when things like that started becoming gray, when things that were very simple started becoming gray, you knew it was going to catapult to where we are today. And to your point, I am waiting for the first NFL domino to fall.
Yeah.
Because it's not a matter of if it'll happen. It's a matter of when it'll happen. And the situation that you laid out, I think, will be the most likely. It's not going to be a guy who was like a first or second round draft pick. It's going to be a guy who went undrafted, played in the preseason, maybe signed to a practice squad, and like 3 games into the season goes, you know what, I don't really want to do this. I wonder if I can go back to Ole Miss, or I wonder if I can go back to, Middle Tennessee State, or wherever you're. That was a really random school poll.
Yeah, it was
Middle Tennessee State, but yeah, like that's what's gonna happen.
But you know what? The NFL, for years, even the NFL was clear about this, that you can you can declare for the draft, you can be drafted. And, because Bo Jackson threatened to do this, you can be drafted as long as you don't hire an agent. Say you don't like the team that drafts you, or you don't like the round you were drafted in, you can go back to school if you have remaining collegiate eligibility, if you don't hire an agent. So again, everything was like, there's a lot of things, tons of things with the NCAA, a lot of things with the NFL. So I suspect NBA, NHL, definitely Major League Baseball, that are very gray, need massive interpretation. There are some things that do not, and this has been one of them.
It's been crazy. Well, it's fun to end on a silly segment. Bob, we're hitting a point where articles are going to be flying here soon. Where can people follow you and your work as we hit free agency?
Yeah, I'm starting to do free agency previews, position by position, and potential Saints targets. My first official one of the offseason came out today. Offensive guards. I have quarterbacks. Yeah, I think it's a possibility. I have a quarterback piece coming out tomorrow. And draft previews for those of you that have followed me for several years. I will always do those, give my draft previews on individual players based off of my own film analysis and study. My handy dandy notebook that all of you are familiar with on draft nights. It's going to be coming into play too. So you can follow all of my written work through the Saints Wire. That's a USA Today publication. Saints Wire can be found on every social media platform, as well as a general internet search. If you have trouble with that for some reason, then just go to usatoday.com and find New Orleans Saints on there. We are employed by USA Today. So we are a USA Today, not conglomeration. What word am I searching for?
Not publication, but
yeah. Anyway, Saints Wire with USA Today. Or you could follow me on my own personal social media, where I will always publish my articles on there as well. Bob Rose on Facebook, at Bobby R 2613. We're getting down to the wire, folks. 3 weeks and 1 day left before the 2026 Get Checked or Check Out Foundation's Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. It's Thursday, March 26th through Monday, March 30th. Tyrone Hughes, Michael Lewis, Courtney Roby, their families, me, my family, tons of the Who Dat Nation, diehard Who Dat Nation, and their families going to be on there. But there are still cabins available. Make sure you sign up. There is still a little bit of time left and a few cabins left. Reach out to me if you need the details on who to get a hold of and how to book your cabin. But please do so. Also check out the Get Checked or Check Out website, tcynow.org. That's at the bottom of your screen there. Help out if you can. The best way to help out is going on the cruise. But if you have just a little bit to give, every little bit helps. Help them out. If you need them for some ungodly reason, I hope you never do, but check them out there too. Give their website a look, especially if you never have. Learn what they're all about. And like I said, try to help out where you can.
For myself, you can follow me everywhere at BT Boylan. It's about that time of year for me as well. I shared this last year. It's about that time of year for film and awards. I'm very thankful to be on the selection committee for, I guess it's my third year on the selection committee for the Reel to Reel International Film Festival with a mutual friend of ours, Thomas Manning, who puts that whole thing together. 26 years of the festival, so got a lot of films to start going through.
Do we qualify? Bayou Blitz, yeah.
I mean, I
guess in any of their categories.
I guess if I took like the 1 hour show and put it in a submission, I don't know what category. It could be anything. I mean,
I'm just curious because I would love to.
Artist suggestive, right? Yeah. So like, I guess we could fill into any category. I don't know.
No, I mean, I would just love to add to our monikers the award-winning Bayou Blitz. Hell, even just the award-nominated Bayou Blitz.
Award-nominated Bayou Blitz. And they're like, what were you nominated for? Like documentary feature?
Yeah. I'm just curious.
Hey Thomas, what you take late submissions for podcast of the year or something?
Well, I mean, yeah. Hey, you're an award-winning. Individually, outside of sports media, So I'm just curious. Going forward, maybe I need to clean up my act to be eligible. I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I'm wondering.
No, there's a lot of bad words using the win. So you just want this. So okay, so I'll make a deal with you. This plaque behind me, that is the award-winning one that you're talking about. If we can add that to your collection, as long as I can get the Hall of Fame nods that you got. I need to be a Hall of Famer in something, and you can be a award winner in something, and so we have a level playing field. You know what I'm saying? Like we both have...
I mean, I can look into it. Yeah, I mean, technically, we would be, if the Bayou Blitz won, we would be co-winners.
Oh, true. I still want the Hall of Fame. I don't know what else we're doing the Hall of Fame for, but I don't have any ties at Gardner Webb anymore. I just say, like, come on, guys, like, vote me in, athletics department. I don't know how, but vote me in. There's definitely other broadcasters that were there much longer than me, but you guys get me in. All right, guys. Well, with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Bayou Blitz podcast. We will be back next week for our 200th episode together, which is pretty wild.
Wow.
So we're going to do something fun. We'll have a whole week to brainstorm. We'll do some fun stuff for the 200th episode because, hey, the 200th episode, got to have fun. And we thank you guys for making it possible and listening to us for 199 episodes now. So until episode 200, hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity. We'll see you then next week for another edition of the Bayou Blitz.